Hello, I'm Berl Schwartz from City Pulse, and we're back for our monthly soap opera, Conversations with Andy. Andy being the mayor of Lansing, Andy Schor.
Soap opera, I love it.
Yeah. Andy, as we talk, you've just returned from the annual commemoration of 9/11. What are your thoughts?
It's always a great event. It's always, a great ceremony remembering those who, are first responders, our citizens who were attacked in New York, in Pennsylvania, in D.C. It's always very emotional. I grew up in New York. My first 18 years were there before I came here to college. And I remember working in the Trade Center, and my father was actually working in Midtown Manhattan the day that the attacks happened, and I got through to him on the phone. So it reminds me of kind of the craziness, the pandemonium, we never thought it was possible, and then it happened. So it's always very emotional, but it's great to be able to honor our first responders, our police and fire, our EMS, and all of those on that day who responded, many who lost their lives, but then those who continue to serve us every day. They're heroes every day, not just on 9/11. I see that in all the text messages I get from both of our fire and police chief, and when every time we hear they saved someone's life or they got shot at, or it's incredible that when we're all running away from the problem, they are running towards the problem. So it's a very emotional time for me, but it's an honor to be the mayor of Lansing and to have such incredible fire and police that we get to work with every day.
As mayor, are you involved in emergency planning, and how prepared is the city?
Some. I am some involved. We have a fantastic emergency planning team. The city is very prepared. We have an emergency operations center with all of our emergency plans on the wall that we update continually. We have just incredible emergency management staff. It all played out in the flood. When the flood happened, in February, we proactively declared a state of emergency before the waters crested. We put up the barrier. We did everything according to plan. We activated the Emergency Operations Center. We had all the different teams from all the different agencies of the city there. We worked with the county. We worked with the township. And it worked really well. So it was an immediate shining example of great emergency planning, and we saved a lot of homes. Probably some lives, a lot of damage that was saved. So the city is extremely prepared, and I'm proud of that. And again, that's due to our incredible emergency management staff through our fire department.
Very good. Let's turn to development, because that's very much been in the news. Of course, there was the big announcement that the Gillespie Group will turn the 600 block into a hotel and a new brand of Meijer groceries. And I want to look a little bit at the big picture because the economy is humming. Everywhere you go, there are signs begging people to apply for jobs. Do you get concerned that all good things must come to an end?
I do. At some point, the market will change, and I'd like to get as many projects booked and financed as we can, because that it will come. There is never an unending great market, but we want to get as much growth as we can get. That project was incredible. So much energy. People have been asking for a downtown grocery store for as long as I can remember. A second hotel. It kind of checked both boxes: housing, as we build capacity in the Stadium District and in our downtown for housing. It's an incredible project, so I'm very excited that it's been booked. The financing is there, the city is involved. It's going to be a lot of cleanup for that spot where Brogan's was. I think Liskey's is going to move, and then we have to see some environmental remediation, and then the buildings go up. So it'll be a year and a half or so while the process goes through, and the city will be involved as we can, especially for cleanup, which is what we do whenever there are brownfield and contaminated properties. But it's extremely exciting. That day, that morning, the mayor of Grand Rapids texted me and said, our Meijer is open, our Bridge Street Market by Meijer is open, and I wrote her back and I said, we're announcing ours today. So it's incredible. And if again, anyone who wants to see what we're going to have, if you happen to be in Grand Rapids, stop by the Bridge Street Market, because that's basically the same model. And I'm really, I've heard from more people in that area in the downtown. we need a grocery store. You know, we live here, we live in the area, we live on the east side, we live in the downtown, we live at Marketplace, wherever. We can do a lot of things, a lot of amenities, a lot of fun, but we don't have a grocery store. So I think that's going to be a game changer for the downtown and stadium district area of the city. We're working on projects all over the city, so it's not just that one area being focused on, but that was a great announcement.
And you mentioned that Liskey's may move?
I think so. I think the Gillespie Group is working with them to see the location. They were working through some of that. I think Liskey's is going to continue. And again, there was talk of what do we do? Do you build over them? I think that they're working with the Gillespie Group to move somewhere else so that they continue to operate.
You mentioned this will be the second hotel. We're going to report in City Pulse this week that what might be the third hotel, that the developer, Paul Beitler, is getting quite concerned that he told us that if he can't get started, get the green light by January, he may well be gone. Are you concerned?
You know, it's a great project. City Hall is a much more complicated deal right now, and I talked to Mr. Beitler early. I told him that the city has committed to him bringing in a hotel on that corner right across the street from the Capitol. I think it's a great project, but that's the easy part. Creating a hotel there is easy and exciting, but before we can do that, and we've talked about this on your show many times, we have to see what we can do with the courts. Are the courts going to get out? Are they going to consolidate with the county? Or are they not? What do we do with the lockup? What space do we go to? We have to figure that out. And I've been working with the county and East Lansing and others to see if we can consolidate. You don't want to make a 50-year mistake. You don't want to create a new city hall, put the district court in there, build a new lockup, and then miss out on the opportunity for regionalism, for consolidation and savings. So we have to do our due diligence. I will hold that Paul Beitler had the best plan for City Hall. And I look forward to that happening. We, of course, from the beginning have said it's on his timeline. If he decides he can't do it, then clearly I understand that. And there are many, many other offers for City Hall that have been put on the table, but we will stick to our commitment. I think that we have to do our due diligence for the taxpayers and to make sure that we can have a system of justice before we get out of City Hall. If we were to get out of City Hall now, we'd need temporary space. Where are you going to put the courts for temporary space? Where are we going to house people for temporary space? It would cost millions more for temporary space just to get the hotel in. I'm not willing to put that much more of the taxpayer dollars on the hook just to rush it. So, he will make his decision, and I respect whatever decision he makes, but we're going to do what's best thing for the city of Lansing taxpayers.
Some might argue the best thing for the city of Lansing is let's get a great hotel there versus plans that aren't, as you've acknowledged, aren't as good as that hotel.
Well, we've got many plans. We've got probably 3 or 4 people who've come to us for hotels. There are a lot of plans for hotels. As soon as that deal with the Radisson was removed, we have had many people approach us. Again, Beitler was the first one that was made public. Now you've got Gillespie's. There are at least 2 or 3 others who have plans for hotels. Now, whether they book the
plans
financing
for
or not.
Hotels at City Hall, though.
Oh, there were what, 3 proposals that were given.
Yeah.
Beitler, 4
Right.
proposals.
4.
Beitler, Karp, the Chrisman Bogie proposal, and Urban Systems. So there were 4 different proposals. All of them were hotels for City Hall.
But there's a reason you consider Beitler's the best.
Yep.
Why?
I like the mayor before me. I like the design. I like the reuse of the building. I liked it. It was the best proposal. It was scored as the best proposal. Again, it was fantastic, but we're not going to spend millions more to get out of City Hall in a temporary space just to have that proposal. There will be others if he backs out. I would like him to continue, and I'd like to get this courts piece done by the end of the year, figure out new City Hall, old City Hall. I'd like to get that done, but we're not going to rush it and then lose out on an opportunity to save money for the city of Lansing and to be regional with our neighbors.
But the same reason he's concerned, you're concerned about, that the economy can't go on like this forever? And could you be facing, not being able to move out of City Hall because the financing isn't going to be there for a major overhaul?
The concerns are either way. So if the economy tanks and there's not financing, that's a possibility. If the economy continues chugging along like it is, then material pricing goes up and there's a labor shortage, so that could be a problem. There's always issues you have to deal with. And we see that. We're seeing, we have about $2 billion worth of investment we expect to be coming into the city of Lansing in the next year and a half, 2 years. And we've heard that. We've heard, we're going to be short workers, and if there are tariffs, materials go up, costs of materials go up, and things like that. So there's challenges either way. And there's always going to be challenges. So we do our best to navigate those challenges. The developers do their best to navigate those challenges. I'm happy to talk to Mr. Beitler at any time.
Has he told you that time's running out?
He told me earlier in the year, somewhere around January or February, he told me that he would wait, but he was hoping to have things done by April. I told him at the time, in February or March, whenever we made the announcement, that we were putting City Hall on hold until we could navigate the other pieces. He said he understood, and he knows that we have to do our due diligence. So at the time he understood, and we haven't spoken in the last probably 2 months or so. But at this point, there's no update. There's nothing for me to tell him other than we're working on it, and we do continue to work on it. City Council had their first hearing on Monday in the Committee of the Whole on the idea of a court consolidation. So we are engaging our legislative partners. The County Commission has already passed a resolution in support of consolidation. Representative Singh has a bill in the House that we're going to work on to have the authority to consolidate the courts. So we're starting to make moves. We need to have all the financing and location and election districts and things like that finalized, and I'm hoping to do that soon. But if we can't figure that out, by the end of the year or soon, then we'll have to make alternative plans, and these are all things that are being worked on.
Do you think it's feasible that it can be done by the end of the year?
The court consolidation?
Yes.
I do. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I do think it's feasible, and I have made it very clear to our partners that that time is of the essence for us, and if we have an opportunity, we need to take it now, and if people are not going to take that opportunity, then we'll have to look elsewhere.
Looking at the bigger picture of development, is there in your mind, do you have sort of a master plan or at least a list of priorities for developing Lansing?
We do. We will enumerate something. I mean, the reality is, with the downtown and stadium district, people are coming to us, and we are navigating incentives and things like that as they ask, or some of them haven't asked. For other parts of the city, we are working on plans. I am a big supporter of South Lansing. We have already finalized one housing project, the Jolly and Dunkel, the old Harley Hotel area, which is now going to be an incredible housing project, which we worked on, and council has now passed, so that's moving forward. Using
the existing building?
The existing building's coming down. It's not in good shape. So you're
going to, who's going to build?
I think the company's called Waypoint. They're going to be building a housing area there, and then we negotiated with them to put $500,000 of public improvements. So when you come off the highway over by Jolly and Dunkel, it's going to be a very positive looking area for the city of Lansing, and we're working on that with them on what that's going to look like. I have a big interest in MLK, in that corridor, the Logan Square, seeing that be redeveloped into something more active. The Cedar Street corridor, LEAP, our economic development agency, just brought on a corridor specialist that we are going to be working on the corridors to see what more can we do on Pennsylvania in the business district, on Cedar, on MLK, on Waverly. Even when you go north, on Turner or Larch going north, you've seen tremendous work on Michigan Avenue. Again, Michigan Avenue is like the downtown where people are coming to us with projects. So you've got the new venue project and Scott Gillespie's new project coming up. We've got Red Cedar. So I mean, we have the master plan in essence of development would be different depending on the part of the city, but we are trying to work through all parts of the city to ensure that there's growth in all parts of the city for jobs, for neighborhoods, for business corridors. We're going to re-envision Michigan Avenue and see if we can create a kind of a better business district with more space on the sidewalks, dedicated walk bike lanes. This is what we tested, but we're taking comment to see what people thought of that, shrinking the lanes. You know, you always hear from those who just want to use Michigan Avenue to get in and out of the city that they're mad that the lanes are shrinking, but we heard a lot of positive comment from residents and others that that they felt safer with the dedicated walk bike lane, and there was more space. They could sit on the patio. You know, slower traffic meant more business because people are stopping and realizing, there's a pizza place, there's a coffee shop, there's a City Pulse. So, you know, we're playing around with all of that.
What about Saginaw, the Saginaw Pine to MLK area?
Yep, we have a Saginaw Oakland Corridor Improvement Authority that we are reactivating, and we would like to start looking at that. We have a facade program that I'd love to engage with some of the business owners there. You know, we actually have businesses open in the Saginaw corridor, but I think that the look and feel needs to be better. There was money a few years ago, is my understanding, through SOCA, the Saginaw Oakland Corridor Association, as well as our Corridor Improvement Authority, for kind of a public art exhibit and things like that, and we're trying to figure out where that's at and
what about, there was talk at one time about trying to return those to two ways, and of course the state controls that.
I would love to do that. We met with MDOT. We met with MDOT about that, and you know, we're working on it. It's expensive. When you turn it two ways, you have to do a lot of signal work, and that can be millions of dollars. MDOT was really concerned about Saginaw and Oakland, or Saginaw and Grand River over by 127 because they have to change around exits, and we said, well, let's just do the Saginaw Oakland area. It's on our list, but we're talking to MDOT about a variety of two-way streets. We're talking about Grand. We're talking about Capitol. So we're talking about a variety of their streets, trying to get them two-way. We talked about trading streets. We talked about you know, pilot signal technology for automated cars. We're having a lot of conversations trying to navigate the immense cost that comes along with switching to a two-way street, but I would very much like to, especially in the Saginaw corridor, because I do think that would help us out quite a bit to, again, slow traffic down, ensure that the corridor is more active as a business corridor.
Of course, we have a gubernatorial election coming up. If Gretchen Whitmer is elected, how much difference does that make to issues like two-weighing state routes?
Well, clearly, Senator Whitmer and I have a great relationship. You know, we served together in the legislature. She's a close friend. You know, I can pick up the phone and text her. You know, I've had a good relationship with Rick Snyder's staff in my 8 months. I worked with him when I was in the legislature. We didn't always agree. There was no doubt. But, you know, we did work together on the suspension and expulsion legislation, on Medicaid expansion, both of which we got done and have had tremendous effect here. So we've been able to work with the Snyder administration, but I think it would be great to have Gretchen Whitmer as governor. She's someone who understands this region, and she's been a big advocate for Lansing. You know, I don't know Attorney General Schuette as well. We do have a relationship. You know, I knew him when he was a state senator, so we do have a relationship, and I know, you know, many of the people who work for him. So I think the city of Lansing is in a good place either way. But clearly, Gretchen and I have a much closer personal friendship and relationship, and she is from here, so she understands much more about Lansing.
Another development question is the fate of the city market. Since we talked last, the Waterfront Bar and Grill lost its case in court. Has it been evicted? Where does that stand?
They haven't, and I actually said that on the radio on Ackerley's show. The case is still, the circuit court case is not finalized yet. They lost the initial, so that's on me, that's not on you. They lost the initial arguments, and so there's still part of the case going on. I believe discovery still has to happen, but it's happening very fast. We believe they have been reduced from the contract they have, that we opted out of that contract, and now they are month to month. And we expect that we've given them notice that we are not renewing the month to month. They continue to stay in there. We will, if they continue to stay in there and it's past the lease, then we'll go through the eviction process if we have to. I don't want to, but if we have to, we would do that like any landlord would do to their tenant. We have to get through the circuit court case first, but we feel very confident that we followed the contract, that we opted out according to the contract, and now we will opt out from the month to month as well. And as soon as it's cleared through the courts, either we will work together and they will move somewhere and we'll do our best to help them, or we'll have to evict them. So we'll see what the necessity brings as we go through the legal system. There's not a rush. We still are looking at what the best uses will be for that property. We have the RFI out, and we look to see proposals to come in for the best use. So, you know,
Is the best use definitely, though, keeping that building? I mean, being a shed,
Yeah.
a large shed, but a shed, it wouldn't be that difficult to dismantle it.
we haven't really had any proposals to bring the building down. I mean, it's newer, so it's still in good shape. And I've heard all kinds of claims and allegations. It is insulated. It is, a sufficient building. It's a matter of what we would use it for. I haven't had anybody suggest that the building would be brought down to be used otherwise. We've had suggestions for restaurants. We've had suggestions for retail. We had suggestions for another pop-up market, the way the city market used to be. We've had suggestions for marijuana. We've had suggestions for something for the homeless. We've had many suggestions. We are looking for, some kind of a plan put together for someone who's willing to take it, that we can lease it to them, and they will take the market and they will reactivate it and reuse it. I think there are lots of good options, and we're going to see what options we get and see how we can move forward. But again, we're not there yet, so we have time to work our way through the legal system with the current tenant, and hopefully that will work itself out, and then we will be able to make a decision on what the best use is for that space on the water.
Definitely, though, it's not likely to ever be used for a city market.
I would doubt it. I mean, with the Meyer, the kind of the urban market Meyer coming in across the street, I think that would make it very difficult, because it's going to have the same things. It's going to have the specialty meats and cheeses and fruits and things. I mean, when you look at the schematics that were there, it's an open garage door model in the summer with all the fruits out front that people can sample. It's this is an urban market concept, and it's basically right across Michigan Avenue. So I don't know that something could compete. But again, if somebody brought us a proposal and they thought that they could finance it, and they thought that it would be sustainable, I'm willing to look at it. I'm not shutting anything down, but I do think it would be very difficult to sustain that kind of a model. We will not do that with taxpayer dollars, subsidizing something like that. But if someone feels that they can do it and they want to take a lease out, we'll put it on the table.
You mentioned in passing someone wants to use it for marijuana. I want to ask you about the failure so far of the city to award a single license for dispensaries, and are you concerned about? I mean, we're going to be,
somewhat.
We're not that far away from being 12 months into this process.
Somewhat, but the city clerk is going through the process. I think he was ready to start awarding based on points. The denials came out, but when the denials came out, some of the folks who were denied challenged. They brought it to our marijuana review board. They can bring it to court. So the question is, if he issues 20 licenses and there are folks who are challenging, there's nowhere to go if they win the challenge. So you have to have some available. So I think we're close, but I trust the city clerk. I think he does a good job. They did a good job evaluating. I would like to see some of the licenses issued, because that's the ordinance that we have. But he's doing his due diligence to make sure that he does it right. So I think he's very close, but I think we have to go through the folks who are taking their denials to the review board and to courts.
One of the businesses that was denied had on Michigan Avenue a location called Best Bugs, and they applied for 3 licenses. They were very well established on Michigan Avenue. They won our Top of the Town award 3 years running. They include local investors, and yet they're not good enough. I think there's a sense in the marijuana community that outsiders are going to end up controlling the dispensary business in Lansing.
the ordinance is the ordinance. I mean, Chris scores based on the ordinance. If people have concerns, they should raise concerns with the ordinance.
What about, are you, as you look at the process, I realize, you said from the beginning, well, I've got this ordinance, we have to
Correct.
deal with this ordinance, but are there things in this ordinance that need to be reconsidered?
I would think that there are. But I know that there are many people that are really nervous about reopening the ordinance because, I don't know what that would result in. While there are definitely questions about some of the conditions and things like that, how they affect local businesses versus kind of the big guys. That may not be what you get if you reopen the ordinance. You may get more caps and other things. It's a legislative process. I've been through it in the legislature for 5 years, at the County Board of Commissioners for 10 years. And when you open something like that, sometimes you don't get what you want. I think that's a conversation that would have to be had with City Council, who are the legislative body, and realistically, if it was something that I couldn't support, then I'd have to veto it, and we'd be in the exact same place we are right now. I think if there is the will to go in and re-review the ordinance, I'm willing to participate, but I don't know what the result would be, to be honest with you. I know there were conversations about caps on grows and other things early on. I have not heard conversation from anyone on council yet about changing around the conditions. I think that we will go through the first round through the ordinance. After that, Chris gets to open up and issue 5 more. Chris Swope, the clerk, gets to issue 5 more, and he gets to determine that process. And then we can have conversations. It may be worthwhile to wait until after November, because if we're going to reopen the ordinance, we may want to see, is recreational now allowed, and do we want to reopen it for that? I'm open to all of it. I'm open to that. Everybody tells me what I am. Either I'm very anti-marijuana or I'm very pro-marijuana. Everyone seems to have different opinions. I have said the same thing since I announced that I was running for mayor. I am supportive of medical marijuana. I've got friends who have lupus, who I know use it because the opioids are too harsh. But we have to have it within reason, in my mind. And the number that the former city council and mayor came up to was 20 and then another 5. And I'll support that until we have discussions to move forward about something else. But I think
of course, something else, the impetus for it may be recreational.
And that could be it. Yep.
Are you supportive of legalizing recreational?
I haven't taken a position as mayor. I don't like taking a position on ballot initiatives because I don't want to represent the city when I take a position, because we have so many different populations within the city. I actually haven't read the language yet. I'd like to read the language before I go vote. I'm one of those that actually likes to read the language before they go vote. I have generally been supportive in the past of opening it up, but I don't know what the ballot initiative says. There were a lot of questions about some of the details that I want to look at, but I won't take a public position on behalf of the city as mayor on this or really any other ballot initiative unless I think it's tremendously positive for the city. And right now, I think we're a divided city. I think that there were many people who support, we've talked about this, many people who supported medical marijuana and decriminalization that had seen concerns over just the great number of shops that were out there, some really good ones, some really bad ones. I think we have done a good job of right-sizing that up till now. We have less operating, and many of them are really the good actors who are operating that we have allowed to continue operating until the licenses come out. So I really don't have an official position on behalf of the city. I mean, I'll take a look at it and see where I'm at personally, how I'm going to vote.
Is the Arts Commission that you appointed has met for the first time?
Yes.
You probably know pretty intimately what its goals are.
Yeah.
One of which is a master plan, another is Performing Arts Center. Are you pleased with the direction it's going in?
I am so
and
far.
Do you have any choice, given that your wife is the chairwoman of it?
People might say that I have placed my wife there. Anyone who knows my wife, Erin Schor, they know that she doesn't answer to me. She is the president of the Impressions 5 board. She is aggressively supportive of the arts, and I think I'm very happy with the way the first meeting went. You all selected leadership, and kind of started on the task. You know, what she raised to me was, you wrote us a charter, and we think that maybe the charter doesn't really fit. And I said, okay, then rewrite it. You know, rewrite the charter, and we'll reissue a new charter. I did an executive order. You know, I think our legal staff took a shot at the charter based on what they thought, but we really want this to be an independent board that is looking at art, is looking at culture throughout the city, and figuring out what we can do better, what we can do more of. Can we do more jazz clubs? Can we do a performing arts center? Can we do more public art? Can we do a master plan? I want all of that flowing through this commission, and I am very open to all of it. You know, I think we've had the Performing Arts Center conversation for so many years. You know, Dave Hollister talked about it, and Virgil Monero talked about it, and Tony Benavides talked about it. I'd like to make that a reality, and I think we're pretty close. So I think this board's gonna navigate all of that. I'm very positive, very optimistic. Clearly, only one meeting, and it was mostly organizational. But I think that there is some energy around this, and I'm excited about it.
Something that I brought up at the meeting was trying to broaden it to include preservation, because there really isn't anyone there. While there's a historic district commission, there really isn't anyone focused on preservation on the government level. Do you think it's broad enough to include that?
I do. Preservation falls under kind of that culture, you know, the preserving the culture of Lansing, the history of Lansing. I do. We went to, a few years ago, my wife and I took our kids to Santa Fe, and we did a tour. And it was like a guy in a trolley who took us around, but they showed us the history of the city of Santa Fe. And it was really cool, and I thought we should do something like that in Lansing. We should talk about kind of our history and our, you know, we don't have the greatest history of preservation, but we can talk about what was here and what did this look like, and this was this, and we have a lot of pictures of things, and we should celebrate more our history. You know, I want to be very proactive with growth of our city, but we should be remembering, celebrating our history, and preserving what we can when we can. You know, it's not always possible to preserve, but when we can, we should. We've talked a lot about, you know, the Cooley Hayes House and other things, and we want that preserved, and we put conditions on it. Now we've got bids back, and we think it will be preserved. So we should be doing more of that when we can. Now, you don't want, you know, an old building that is falling down, that is dangerous, that you can't save. We want to try and save the buildings before they get to that condition. And I think all of that falls under kind of the preservation area. And if that becomes one of the goals of the commission and gets into the new charter, I'm fully supportive.
Finally, the general election is less than 2 months away, and being an even year election, of course, nothing's on the ballot for the city of Lansing, but what is on the ballot that might affect the city of Lansing?
Well, representation for sure. You know, I believe that Sarah Anthony is going to be our next state representative. I believe Kara Hope also will be our next state representative. So we will have two great women representing Lansing in the legislature, in the House of Representatives. Senator Hertel, I believe, will be returning. So we will have very active and very exciting representatives for us in the legislature. We're going to have a very active congressional race that I think is neck and neck right now between Congressman Bishop and Alyssa Slotkin. That's all really important. You know, we have many ballot initiatives that are coming. It seems that minimum wage and paid sick time are not going to be on the ballot because the legislature enacted them as was their right in initiative. I am hopeful that they do not then go alter what they enacted. That does concern me as a citizen. It concerns me. I'm not speaking on behalf of the city, but it does concern me as a citizen. So you know, there'll be a variety of things on the ballot. Marijuana is on the ballot. Recreational marijuana is on the ballot. The voters, not politicians. So the gerrymandering, allowing people to kind of pick their own districts rather than having the legislature write their legislative districts is on the ballot, and I think that's important. I've seen redistricting when it's all one party writing seats for themselves. You know, we saw my seat in the legislature, the 68th, was a very, very strange seat. It was everything north of the highway and then kind of came down the sides with a kind of a hole in it that was in a different district, and that was done because of the idea that the Republicans could win the out-county seat, which Tom Cochran won. So I do think that has been an issue, a problem. Even if the Democrats controlled it all, I would think it was a problem. I think that having one party control who writes the seats for the folks that represent us is a bad idea.
Before we go, anything you want to bring to our attention?
No, I'm trying to think of what we forgot. We always covered so much, but I'm sure we'll get it next time. I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to talk about the grocery store because we've spent the last 3 or 4 episodes talking about the concept of the grocery store. But it also, for all your viewers, it was fun to see Berl's face when he found out it was a Meyer. It was the hardest secret in the world to keep, but we were able to keep it. And but it's exciting to be able to share that with you. I know you're a good journalist.
Well, had I known more what was going on in Grand Rapids, I might have cracked that one.
I know we were hoping that wouldn't happen.
You did well.
But you're a good journalist. You really kind of picked around the edges and you came very close. So it was impressive.
Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks, Berl.
All right. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next month. Until then, have a good day.